And I think it's an emerging market. So I think if the right people stay on course or stay true to the course, they will. South Africa's is one of I think it's the place to be in the future. I think it's got a very rosy future. However, it's also got the other side where you've got your extremists, and unfortunately you can get mass movements to behave in a way that's not going to be beneficial to the society at large. So you just hope that things get done in the right way, but I believe there's enough people that want the right things that will get South Africa where it needs to be. I mean, it's the strongest country in Africa. Africa's the next continent where everyone's going. So, America's had its day, Europe's where it is, China's growing, and Africa's got the resources. So those that know will be able to capitalise. So South Africa's it's a good place to be.
Politically, it's, as I said, I think we're going through a disappointing phase from a politician's point of view in South Africa. I think a lot of the things that they're starting to bring in now, it's kind of the root of what we've seen in a lot of other countries where the government feels that they have secrets to keep. And that's disappointing. Kind of the premise that, the ANC's always, put forward is this openness and transparency. I don't think that there's anything for them to be embarrassed about. And I feel saddened that they feel the need to, pass things like this, Protection of Information or Secrets Act. It just, maybe it just means if you're a cynic that they have something to hide. As I said, politicians will continue to disappoint you, not only in South Africa, all over the world.
I think there should be lots of changes. If they would give us the opportunity to help them, they open their hearts out to people that have gone abroad and learned something. And usually people that are well-traveled and have traveled away from South Africa have a lot of input that they can put back into the country, open those doors for us, so we will be able to bring back and put back into South Africa and cause these changes to happen, because we don't want to see poverty. We don't want to see the people where they were 40 and 50 years ago. We want to see a change, and the change can become faster if they give us the opportunity, versus thinking that South Africans are gone abroad and they can make a change. We can make a change. We will get together with them and help make this change in South Africa.
If there is not going to be an integration of all the racial groups in South Africa who put aside their ideological differences, who put aside their own narcissistic ambitions, who put aside greed, there's going to be a problem.
I just hope that the future leadership in South Africa, whoever that might be, and that's what people, I hope and pray that is the case. For me, it's not of color, race, or religion. I think people need to set those things aside, because life is just far too short. But if they can get South Africa back on track, where we don't have the kind of violence that I mentioned before, the savage violence, if they can get past the corruption, where people have belief in the leadership again, if they can give guidance, and that goes for all countries, but all politics, I think South Africa will be one of the most sought after countries in the world, and probably the next growth place, or emerging market as it is today. It'll probably be the leader, because I think South Africans are very intuitive, they are very ingenuitive, and that to me is just a phenomenal characteristic. But some things have to change, and I pray to God that it does. I pray to God that it does.
South Africa is a very special place. There's a lot of, I think Africa in general, including South Africa, has got a certain feeling to it, a feeling of strong soul, and there's a certain attachment there that I'll never lose. I certainly hope that politically it's come on hugely, as we all know. It would be wonderful if security-wise those problems could be dealt with, and also politically if it could just stabilize a little bit, because I think it's got a lot to offer.
We've tried to reach out to, to people in authorities, government officials, with with very little response, and some of the questions I've asked, why is it that you would give the American the opportunity more than you would give us? Because they're able to avail themselves. But from that standpoint, we are availing ourselves. We want to represent South Africa. We love South Africa, and we want to do the best to see this country. That's why we left, because we wanted something bigger and better. And we wanted to open the door for our children, our descendants, but then we also want to open for the door for people in South Africa. We want to see the AIDS, the HIV/AIDS eliminated, and try to help through those processes. But it seems as though we're not given that opportunity.
And I had it on my heart to give estheticians the type of education and training, because Irish and South African estheticians are known to be the top in the world, and I wanted to prove to the rest of the world that we could do it, meaning South African Americans can produce the same amount and quality of estheticians that the rest of the world can do.
And then I think that the progress potential in South Africa is limitless. It really is. I don't know anybody, I mean anybody, that I have met anywhere in the world, and especially back here in the States now, who has visited South Africa that just isn't absolutely mesmerized by the country. They think it's special, beyond the other countries that they visited. And some of them have been all around the world just as I have.
And I think, the reality is, make the most of wherever you are. And yes, I am living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've chosen for now to make the most of where I am. But I will tell you, when I go back to South Africa and I see the growth, and I see the malls, and I see the energy, and you look at what happened during the World Cup, and just the level of enthusiasm and entrepreneurship and development and building that's going on in South Africa, I think there is a lot to be said for, and also just the opportunities there.
South Africans, by and large, as a group, they tend to be fairly entrepreneurial, they're fairly sophisticated, they're fairly worldly, fairly well educated.
I think that's why there's a problem in South Africa. And I think we now at least halfway through the first generation of the death of apartheid, and by now the fruits of a good education would start filtering through, and they're not. So I'm very perturbed about it. I'm perturbed. If you ask me about the political situation, I loved Mandela's attitude and so forth. A couple of his ministers I wasn't enamored with. But basically I'm definitely not enamored with some of our ministers today.
The authorities clearly aren't interested in taking violent crime seriously, and yet it is very real.
They've got a backlog of housing, as you know, in South Africa, and if we can make that change and help with rehab technology that works and that is great, we have funding that would be able to bring into the country that we can partner with the government or anyone in private sector to make it happen, so our people in South Africa could live a better life. We can create job opportunities and things like that.
I think that leadership of the country now needs to step forward with a dash of speed to be able to separate the sheep from the leaders, make a joint statement of unity, get a vision, get a mission, and say, this is where we are, this is where we're going to go to. Let's create jobs. You are not going to create jobs by having people, radical elements from outside, making these statements to the world and thinking the world's not going to sit up and take notice.
But I think people should do what's in their heart. Like, there's people making South Africa better. That's because that's what's in their heart, to do that. And so I think people in South Africa, there's those that have their heart to do it there, and there's those that have their heart to leave. And I think that that's their own personal journey.
The first world side of South Africa is still amazing. Entrepreneurial, the banking system, in my opinion, the best in the world. Just the whole fiscal and monetary policies, which have been very tightly held and tightly controlled and still are excellent. And then you've got, the beauty of the country. You've got the first world side of South Africa is mind-blowing. What I saw in Johannesburg, what has taken place since I left 8 years ago, the development, the sophistication, the European elegance in the cafes and restaurants, and it's just amazing. And obviously a lot of money has been invested and is being invested.
South Africa has so much to offer to the entire world. People look at South Africa, the name South Africa, you just have to mention it anywhere. And you South African, oh gosh, we love South Africa, we've heard so much. People want to come down to trade missions. We're trying to get the government to partner with us so we can bring the people in. Investors want to come in. Give us the opportunity, that's all we're asking for.
I think there's too much uncertainty, and where there's uncertainty, where there is no vision, people lose hope. You want to create an atmosphere of certainty. You want to appease your investor. An investor, when he watches on television statements being made about nationalization, about an unstable workforce, he's going to get up, take his checkbook, get on the plane, and he's out of there. So again, create a stable workforce, a stable manufacturing environment, create stability. Don't let there be a contradiction in terms. South Africa has a great constitution. The monetary system is great. The banking system is one of the best in the world. And then you have all these words of uncertainty permeating the business atmosphere, creating instability and uncertainty, and your investor flees. But I still think South Africa has got a lot of potential.
And I do believe that there's enough infrastructure and enough smart people who will it to be what it has the potential to be. Just that we have in South Africa the most extraordinary culture, the most extraordinary resources, and I believe that if everybody works together and is positive, it can be the South Africa it was during the World Cup.
It's like you don't get return phone calls, and there's one person that has really been very good about responding and would like to, but I just didn't get that feel that he wants to work with us.
Was it somebody in government?
In government, yeah.
You need someone to stand up. Stop this corruption. You've got where have you seen in the world you have a police chief who sat on the board of Interpol, who's been incarcerated for corruption and is now possibly going to be considered for parole? That does not create a climate of stability. The world looks at that with big eyes and says, oh my gosh, what is going on here?
There is just an amazing, unique aspect to South Africa, and I do have to say, wherever I've been in this country, the South Africans that I've met, and certainly the South Africans in Atlanta, warm, welcoming. We have Spencer Sterling standing right here, warm, welcoming, hospitable, and you always feel at home.
Now, as far as the utterances of certain young people in South Africa are concerned, I pay absolutely no attention to that and have no concern with it whatsoever. I told my friends there, look, this is not a star, it's a meteor. It's going to flash across the sky with a blinding flash of light and burn out. No, they said, the next president of the country and everything's going to be nationalized, and gloom and doom amongst some of those people, and they're making money and they're living well, and they can see nothing but disaster because they watch the television, they read the newspapers, and they're worried sick. And I said to them, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because economics rule. That's what's going to happen. The emerging middle class in South Africa is growing by leaps and bounds. And those people are accumulating assets, and they're living the good life. No longer in a rondel, in a kraal, or in a shack in a township. They're living in a suburb. Their children are in real schools, and they're driving beautiful cars. Some of them well earned, some of them not so well earned. Those people are not going to give up. They know where that infrastructure came from. They know what the rest of Africa looks like. Not going to give it up very easily.
What makes South Africans different as clients is this. Most foreigners that I deal with in this country, very often high net worth individuals who've come across into the United States, or businesses that have come here with their people, they are here because they really want to be here. They really want to be in the United States, and that is why they are here. With some South Africans, at least, it's not that way. You sometimes find that people are here not because they really want to be here, but because they feel they have to leave South Africa. So that can make them, from the professional perspective, people who are a little bit more difficult to deal with because they're not certain. They're possibly waiting for developments back home to change. And if there were to be a positive development, well, they might not be here seriously.
South Africa has a great constitution. It is a democracy. And if it can behave and sustain the values of a democracy, with all of its natural resources, its gateway to Africa, its entrepreneurial spirit, it can do wonders. But if these socialist policies and the people perpetrating them were to get control, it will become just another African paradise. But if you said to me, all right, stop sitting on the fence, tell me your opinion, forget about anybody else's, your opinion, what is the most likely outcome? My view is the most likely outcome is success.